We have a goal with this webisode, and it is to take mixed media and apply it to a recipe. And the recipe means that it'll be a process that you can be successful with every single time you do it. Does that make sense?
And scrapbookers, we're going to make scrapbook pages, and then we're going to use that same recipe to create a card in the same way.
Right. So if this sounds intriguing, come play with us. Well, here is our first page, and I thought you might want to kind of see what our goal is. And as you can see, it's a 12 by 12, and we've done several things to it, and we'll go step by step through it. But you can see this kind of blue-green, and that's been done with some distress paint. We did a little bit up at the corner, too.
So this is a perfect example of a mixed media technique.
Exactly.
Combining different elements and layering them step by step to get the required or the desired result.
Right. So I'm going to show you the products that we're going to use. We've got some embossing paste, and this is white. We also have some of the paints. Now, these are distress paints, and we're using 3 different colors. We're also using some chipboard pieces for embellishment. We're using, with the paste, we're going to use this 6x6 template. And the swirls that you saw, we have lots of swirls. You can see the swirls here where we're using our pair of swirls cutting die. And we're also using an older stamp, thingamajigs, to do some embellishing. So these are the embellishment parts that we're choosing. Now our paper, let's see, let me scoot this all over. We are taking a sheet out of Stolen Moments, and you have that sheet, right?
I do. This is one of our newest paper packs.
Right.
It's a double-sided, so it's a little bit heavier than some. It's great for this purpose. And this is one of the papers. It's got this border down along the bottom, and that's where we're going to place it for when we start our techniques.
Right. Let me move this page over. So this is the recipe part. So we're going to take the distress paints.
And I have 2 of them. I have bundled sage and broken china. You have to shake these really well, and there's like a ball in there to help it shake up nicely. So I want to get them both shaken up so they're ready to go.
Now these have a top that has a dabber on it or a dauber on it.
It's like a sponge. It's a sponge dauber.
Now when you get yours, it will be white. So you need to kind of pump it a little bit. So you just press it down to get that flow started.
And then you start
kind of scrubbing.
Right.
Now, one of the things, some of you, this is going to be a little uncomfortable because this is somewhat free form, but it's good for you if it makes you uncomfortable. Others, you're just going to feel good because you get to mess with this stuff. So you're doing about a 9-inch area, and you're not worrying about the edges being smooth because you do want them to look a little different, a little not uniform.
Every time you do this technique, it's going to be a little bit different. And one of our new designers said something that I kind of liked. Amy Hurley-Purdy, she's one of our new ladies. And
number 1, don't you love her last name?
And she said, in mixed media, mistakes are just opportunities for embellishment.
Oh, that needs to be emblazed somewhere.
That's a wonderful line.
So a little bit more over here, not so much at the top.
Okay.
And maybe just a tad in the corner.
So just a little bit right here.
Yeah.
What we're doing is we're making sure that we have enough to show from out the edges of the photo.
Exactly.
And then we want kind of a balanced look, so...
We're doing that because Susan did it first, huh?
Yeah, Susan started it.
Now, while this is wet, you're going to go, and so that was broken china.
You're
going
to move on with
the bundled sage. Now, it would be fine to leave it just the way this is. There's nothing wrong with it. The colors work beautifully. But you can mix these paints one over the other as long as it's still wet. So in case you found some areas that maybe you wanted to be a little more filled, you might want to go a little bit over there. hopefully you can see that this is somewhat changing the color.
Right. It gives it a more muted look. It kind of matches the papers a little better.
Now, one thing you don't want to do is you don't want to take the container. Do you want to hand it to me? And you don't want to go and squeeze really, really hard, because you can squeeze so hard that the top will pop off. So resist that temptation and just do that. Looks just fine. So everybody, let's take a look at this.
I'm going to get it up here too.
Okay.
I want to hit, I like that color. Just,
so
I like the combination color.
This is what you're going for. Okay, so it looks, you're just creating, basically you're creating a big mat. Okay, so just kind of think of it that way. Now, it's going to dry pretty quickly. I have found some people who have a tendency to put too much on it. So if you're seeing globs of paint, that's too much. So it will take longer to dry if that happens.
If you're in a hurry, you can heat it a little bit with a heat gun, but it's really not necessary. It dries pretty quickly. So now I have the white embossing paste.
And this is the template, again, that we chose. Now, there's no right template to use or wrong one. We decided to use this one because we like the swirls. In a later project, I'll show you a different one with different swirls.
Now, I have a mini squeegee that we use with this. It's a lot like a spackling paste, which we've seen before. And with the embossing paste, I like to put some off to the side so I'll have something to work with my stencil.
And I just dip it out of the jar when I'm doing it.
Right.
So, again, either way is fine.
Yeah, it's just kind of a preference. So also, please remember to close it up because it does dry kind of quickly and you don't want to get a crust on there.
And, okay, so then, now this is 6 inches and you're going to go, wait a minute, I've got a 12-inch page, what gives here? Well, you're really wanting to use this around the edges because there's going to be a photograph right here.
Right.
So there's no need to necessarily kind of waste the paste under there.
Right.
So you just want this to go into the painted area, but also a little bit off of it. So I'm just going to place that there for you.
Yep, that's just fine. And I'm just going to, I'm going to push the squeegee down, right down so that it's on the template and just start pulling.
Right, and just drag it. Now, where you see that white, that's just the embossing paste. What I think is amazing is that the area that is becoming the design is only as thick as the plastic. It's got to be a 32nd of an inch thick.
Right.
I mean, it's sort of nothing, and yet it looks so good. Now, you don't have to do all of this area.
Just sort of getting up at the top so I don't miss anything.
You do want to lift it right away. Look at that. Isn't that just gorgeous? Okay, and then we're going to move and go toward the bottom. So you can turn that template. You can leave it how it was. You do want to continue moving, though, because you don't want the embossing paste to dry on the stencil.
On the template. Yeah,
right.
This is kind of a quick maneuver. I'm going to try to stay off or away from the edges and try not to go off the edge of my paper either. So.
Yeah, you can see that you would not want the paste to dry into the template. So I'm going to help you, I hope, and lift this.
Please.
And let's go over onto this area. What do you think? A little bit over there?
Yeah, that sounds good.
Okay.
Looks good.
And now normally when we're doing a stencil, we do stencil tape and we tape it down. You can, but it really sort of isn't necessary with these smaller areas that we're doing.
Plus, it's kind of a free-form look, and it's just it's just really not necessary. I agree. Good. Just a little bit?
Yeah.
Good. All right.
Now, okay, pretty. I just find that magical. Excuse me while I ooh and ah. Let's just do a tad up there, okay?
Just right up at the top.
And then we're going to wash this off just with water. And you just want to do that. So if you're kind of in a working area, you can also use baby wipes. So there you go.
Ta-da.
Isn't that just luscious? I think it's just so pretty. Now, after this is dry, which really just takes a few minutes, you could paint over the top of it. We're not going to, but this kind of gives you, it gives you that option.
Right.
So we're going to go back from it. And a few other of the embellishments that we would add is, one is going to be that bird cage. Thank you. And what did I do with it?
I'm not.
Oh, I dropped it on the floor. Okay.
Okay, so we've got the chipboard bird cage.
Okay.
And Susan elected to paint over that with the walnut stain distress paint.
Right. You would just dab that.
Real easy. Just like inking, but the distress paint just covers it nicely.
I'm going to put it here. Now, we've taken that pair of swirls and we've done 2 swirls out of the green. So we've done the large and the small. And the small one is going to be our hanger at the top here. So I'm not going to glue them down. I'm just going to position them. So that's going to go right there.
So that's just the next step in your mixed media is starting to add elements. I probably would add the photo before I started doing this, just so you know so the photo would go right on center there.
Well, because we want to be just like Susan, so we're going to elect to have this 4x6 photo in the center, so we can kind of think about that.
Right, and just start layering your different elements. So the larger of the two would go down here. We would set that there.
Now, then we're going to do 2 of the pair of swirls out of a dark brown. And of course, the nice thing about having Susan doing it for us is that we can just do the same thing. So she put one there, and then she had the little one coming off of it. And again, you can turn them over if you want a different look.
I want to show you something. We have these great paper flowers that we can just set around too.
And they come in a package. There's 72 in the package.
And they're embossed so that they sit up like this. It's a great look. And they're really simple to just go over with the distress paint to change the color.
The only thing you have to do, because they are embossed, is you really do need to push that dabber on them. So just to get the paint. And you can layer the paint just like we did on the paper.
So they're simple to change the color, and then you just start layering them wherever you feel, and you can put them one on top of each other like
There are several several sizes in that tube of flowers. So we did put the biggest one with, I'm going to move your flowers, with the smallest one after we colored them. And then we did 2 more over here after we colored them. And then we did another one up here and did some journaling. Now, something else that we added in that same container that had the bird cage, there are birds. And there are...
As you might think.
As you might think. Yeah, doesn't that work together nicely? So there's a bird and a wing, and there's a flying bird. Now, when you have chipboard, of course, one side has obviously been cut, and the other side is a little bit rougher on the edge, but you want to figure out which way you want your birds flying. So in this one, we have the flying bird in this area, and then we painted these with the distress paint, and then we have this one little one right sitting on top of the bird cage. Now these come with like 30 pieces of chipboard for like $3.50 or
lots
something.
To play with.
Yeah,
and afterwards you can embellish them with jewel dazzles. Put little eyes on, put centers on the flowers.
Now let me go back. So you see this. So paint, stencil with embossing paste, and then you start embellishing. Now we chose the flowers, the cutting dies, and the chipboard for our embellishments. Right. And then we decided to do a little stamping. So I'm going to ask you to scoot that over.
Okay.
And we added the thingamajigs, which, like I said, it's an older stamp, but those brackets just seem to work really nicely on the edges. So that's kind of an extra. And we're going to get in really close so you can see what happened with the jewel dazzles on the flowers. There we have one big one with a circle of small ones. And over here, we have a big one with a circle of tiny ones.
Tiny ones around it. Right. That's such a nice look. I love that.
And then some jewel dazzles on the cutting die cuts, our little bird. And then over here, we just have a single dazzle.
So while the first time you look at this, it looks like there's a lot going on, but if you just break it down piece by piece, it's really not that difficult.
Hence the recipe.
The recipe, and adding some journaling on some pieces of paper, some tags.
And those papers were also just, the edges were just touched with a distress paint. Now, there is the scrapbook page. Here is a card that follows the exact same pattern. So you can see that the exact same Stolen Moments paper was used. We did this middle area with the 2 distress paints. We added the die-cut pair of swirls in the brown and in the green.
Added the bird, the flowers,
I think
with
I
the
forgot,
distress paint.
Did I forget the embossing paste? I did. So paint, embossing paste with the stencil, then the embellishments. And there's our little bird, so we haven't forgotten him. And our together got turned into thanks for the card. We did add a bow on both of them.
So you could technically do both of these sort of at the same time. You got everything out and just kind of keep moving along and doing each technique.
So see, the recipe is the part that I felt would be most important so that you can duplicate it. Okay, you want to see more? Yeah. So we have more. Of course we have more. So we're going to take another grouping and do the same thing. Now, we're not going to demo this particular next one because you've already seen it. So in this one, we have used the Simply Susan paper and paper pack, and you can see that it is using the white. This is the picket fence distress paint. Same thing in the center area, even up in the upper corner. Same idea.
So she started with the painting.
Right. Did that first.
Moved on to the stencil.
And I have that somewhere right here.
So you can see, and with this paste, it was this, with the stencil, we used the black paste in this instance.
Right. So this isn't painted. This is using the hexagon screen or stencil. Right. And using the black.
Right. And if you touch it, you can feel it. It's a raised area because of that's the paste on there.
Now, we used the same, some of the same ideas in that we used a cutting die, and this is the Lacy Labels cutting die.
And so you can see that they are placed around. Here's one of them. So once you've done your painting, your stenciling, and you can actually go back on top and do a little more painting if you like. Then you start layering your papers, your embellishments. So here's one here. It's set on its side over here. I like how this one is actually backed. There's another piece that can cut that fits right in there, and that's what Susan did with the green paper to fit around there.
Now, with the chipboard, instead of the bird cage and the birds, we opted for the butterflies. These are also by Maya Road. And with the butterflies, they have a solid one and then an evacuated one. So Susan painted the solid, painted the evacuated one, and sandwiched them together. We also added the flowers. Now, it's the same flowers, we just didn't paint them.
Right.
Just left them white.
It makes a nice contrast.
It does. And we did use the
pave crystals.
Right, into the center. And these are self-adhesive, so because of the purple.
The vine that you see comes with the Simply Susan ribbon set.
So does the crepe. So that adds...
Right, it adds a beautiful touch. And the little arrows are actually from a stamp set. So you stamp the arrows and then cut them out and place them on here. So for more embellishment.
And that's called Fun and Fancy Arrows, I think, something like that.
You're right.
So we'll back up, and you can see that that recipe we followed. All we did was change the stencil, we changed the cutting die, and we changed the stamp. Right. And the chipboard. So same process, however.
And
now we have a card. So here's the card. Same thing with Simply Susan. You can see that the white paint has been done under here. Some of the black embossing paste this time. And what's nice about that is that it's black everywhere, so you don't have to try to paint it afterwards.
Right. And you can add to it. It picks up the color of the paints nicely, too, afterwards.
So that same cutting die, we've done some journaling behind it. There is the stamp that was done on green paper.
There's one.
And a black one. Stamped right there.
Ribbons added. Another one of those butterflies.
So same elements, same recipe as before, but you're getting a very unique look that I don't think you can get
very
other ways.
Unique. This is a gift for somebody.
And it's fun. It's really fun. And those of you who like to get messy, you can get as messy as you want. Those of you who like to stay clean, well, you can be tidy also. So now we're going to go into Halloween.
Okay.
So we're going to change it up a little bit, just to give you some other options. Now, let's get close onto this page because I want you to see that it's glittery. Ooh.
It's spooky glittery.
It is spooky glittery. Look at the feathers, and we've got some stamping. Oh, whoops. And the Happy Halloween, which is Scrapbooking Dazzles. We've got pave crystals in black.
This is great. This is my favorite part. The birds.
These are the same birds that we just used, but now they've been turned into glittery, scary crows.
That is such an excellent addition.
Isn't that fun?
Yeah.
Okay, so what are we doing here? You want to bring in the papers?
Let's start with our recipe.
Okay.
Our recipe starts with paper and the paper pack.
These are
something wicked. Paper pack just for Halloween.
Brand new paper pack in limited supply, by the way.
There's some great looks in here. It's kind of gothic. It's a little orange, a little black.
The template stencil that we're going to use is this one. It's a branches, and you have that? Or do you need this?
Oh, I have. No, okay. I have it. I have it ready to go.
So that's what we're going to use.
We're using the black embossing paste, which I have here. So this one you'll be able to see. It was used on the last one.
And the glitter, now, we like glitter around here, so why have one jar when you can have, 24 of them? So we're using out of this set, but of course you can use anything. What's nice about this is it's going to give us our black as well as our purple and our pink for that feather. Right. So we're going to do that. The stamp that we're using is this. This is the Tim Holtz collection, and this is the Halloween. They have this kind of blueprint look, which there's a whole series, but of course this is what we're using.
They're lots of fun.
And then the chipboard that we're using is somewhere on my table.
Those birds, like we talked about.
Well, actually it's the feathers.
Oh, the feathers.
Yeah.
We've got that too.
So when I find them, I'll show them to you.
Sure.
But okay,
as
so
we go along.
You're going to start with the paper.
We're starting with the papers. I started with a black cardstock, and I started with the large 12 by 12 text paper that's got kind of this inky look all over it. I cut a 1/4 inch off of two sides, and it's on the gallery. You can look up those dimensions.
Right.
Then I cut another strip of orange and laid it across the top. So we've got this divided look. So the first thing we want to do is we want to start painting. And we've got the distress paints in chipped sapphire and seedless preserves.
And I would not have thought of those to go onto this spooky Halloween thing, but
I'm going to shake it up a little bit.
Let me just kind of bring it in so you can see. Do you see how this ghostly sunset? Well, that's created with those colors. And down at the bottom too.
Right. We've got two areas. We're intending on focusing our paste in two separate areas.
Right.
So that's where I want to paint because I want to see that through it. And I'm just going to start moving it around on
You're just messing
just randomly.
And it's so much easier the second time because you're not worried about making it perfect.
Right.
Because you realize that, okay, I don't have to.
Right.
I can just sort of scribble.
Yeah, you never know what it's going to look like if you make a mistake, what it might how it might show up.
Yeah.
It might look cool.
And it's going to grow, it's going to dry pretty quickly, again, if you are light with your application, which is exactly what you're doing.
Right. I'm trying to sort of...
So you're streaking it
in this one.
That's neat.
Yeah. Do just a little bit down here, and then as it's starting to dry a little bit, then I'm going to bring in my my stencil. There we go.
Your dilution?
Dilution spray, correct.
Yeah, now this is something that was added, a new addition to our recipe, is the dilution sprays.
And this one is after midnight. And see if we just get a little bit.
We both go back.
That ought to do.
You want any more up there?
Do you want more there?
I do.
I think that's the question.
Yeah.
There we go.
You did such a good aiming job. I want to have you try again.
All right.
At this point, you might want to take a paper towel and just dab it because the sprays, because we're going to go over with the stencil.
Right.
Okay. So sorry, I threw that at you, didn't I?
You can also let it dry on its own, but we want to move on and show you the next step. So
yeah.
There we go.
Okay.
Okay.
So now we're going into the stencil. Now this is a different one because it doesn't have a frame.
Right.
So you might think, okay, how am I going to do that? Well, just watch.
You have to allow yourself to be a little bit free form on this.
Okay.
Allow the edges to go past a little bit, or you can stop before you get out to the edges.
Okay.
Put some of that down there.
So you're putting it on your
covering
craft
it up
sheet,
so it doesn't dry up. I've got my mini squeegee.
Okay.
And in this case, I'm going to start in the middle and work my way out.
Okay.
I think that would be the trick here.
It's going to be fun to see what you do at the edges there.
I'm going to stop before I get to them.
Oh, okay. Oh. Okay, so that way you won't have a straight edge.
Right.
Okay, that makes perfect sense.
What I want to say about the paste is it's best if you work it as little as possible.
Right.
So if you're able to do this, in one quick swipe, that's wonderful. It doesn't always work that well for me to do it that quickly, but it's pretty forgiving too.
Well, and I found the same thing is that when you first do it, the tendency is I'm going to put a whole bunch on here.
Right.
Resist that temptation. Just put a little bit because you can just swipe it again and again. Let me scoot this. So now we're going to reveal.
See how that worked. Ta-da!
How gorgeous is that? How gorgeous is that? Okay, sorry.
Well, before I do the next part, I want to put the glitter on here.
Oh, okay. Good idea.
Because it's very important to glitter
while it's still wet.
While it's still wet.
You start the sentence and I'll finish it. Okay. Now, what color are you doing?
This is black? The black.
Okay.
Wow glitter.
Wow
kind of
glitter. Because it's kind of wow.
And it's going to stick to the embossing paste because it's still wet. If you do this when it's dry, it's not going to work out so well. We'll shake it off afterwards.
Okay. You know what's funny is that as you're putting it on there, I'm seeing purple, but I guess it's the paint that's kind of reflecting off of it.
Okay.
Yeah. So we'll let that sit?
I'm going to let that sit there.
And then we'll go over here.
Place my stencil up at the top. We're going to be pretty free form about it. I'm not going to worry about how this... I'm not going to worry about it too much.
Well,
and
I'm just actually, as I'm looking at the page, she put a black strip of cardstock over this where the two papers meet. So that's going to
cover up this lower line of what you're seeing. I'm just going to, just quick as I can. I'm going to try to do it a little quicker so it can just...
Okay. And you do want to see the stencil as you see that she's rubbing that applicator, that little squeegee over it. You see the stencil, and that's exactly what you want because the embossing paste is just to be a thin layer. And voila. That is just gorgeous. Okay. Glitter me, babe.
Okay. Glitter me.
Okay. There you go. Just getting it.
Okay.
Okay, and then we're going to tap it off onto our craft sheet, right? Is that what you want?
That's what we'll do.
Okay, so I'm just going to tap it off. And John will get in close so we can see. Wow.
It's a beautiful look.
It is.
So as it dries, that'll stay on there. It's pretty well on the paste.
And look at the paint behind it. That's what's doing some wonderfulness here. And down at the bottom. That's what's
so nice about those templates.
Wow.
And so you can see the edges are all just kind of free form, willy-nilly, but that'll all be taken care of.
I'm going to give you back that while you're figuring out what to do with that glitter. And I want to bring back in the whole page. So here you can see that strip of cardstock was put along the edge, right over the edge of the embossing paste. We've done, this is the scrapbooking dazzles, the Halloween ones. And then as we said, those birds have been turned into crows with the use of just some of the paint.
One of the things that we did on this one, which I should have done before I did the embossing paste, was there's a stamped crow right up here.
Oh.
And that's with this one.
Okay.
And that's really simple to do. You do the painting, you do the spraying, and then you stamp.
Okay.
And
so
then you do your embossing.
on our first two, we did the stamping afterwards as an embellishment, but in this case, you want to adjust the recipe, do the stamping first for our crow, and then you can do the stamping of the pumpkin.
Right. So there was some stamping done on one of these tags, which you can see here.
Okay.
And there was stamping done and a little spraying too on one of the pumpkins. For the birds, they were pasted over and then glittered, so that's how you get the crow effect. So it's just another layering technique. Now, what I love about this is the little boy in this picture. It's great. These are the scrapbooking dazzles.
They are.
Scrapbooking dazzles.
And I don't know if I can pull it up, his mask was the scrapbooking dazzle.
Oh, there it is.
And
you did it.
we discovered that it fit perfectly, so we decided to give him a ghostly mask or a scary mask.
That was very cute.
Very fun.
So it's just a matter of layering. So you're layering those, you're adding those feathers that we talked about.
Yeah, and the feathers, I found them. They were over here.
Okay.
These are they're laser cut, so there's a whole sheet of them. These are from our friends at Want to Scrap. And so you've got really a nice design, but a lot of different sizes. You're going to see this later. But here it is with the glitter added to the paint.
Right,
Okay.
to the paint. So it's been gone over, we went over it with the distress paints and then put the glitter on it while it was still wet, so it would dry in place.
So there is our scrapbook page. Let's back up a little
the
bit.
pave crystals too. They're kind of hard to see, but they fit in there now. And washi tape down at the bottom.
That's right. One little strip. This is the from Queen, I think. Yes.
Yep.
Okay. So here's our scrapbook page. We'll back up just a little bit more, and now let me bring in our card, and let's get in close to see that. So same idea. We've used a tag that
like this one that was used on the other one.
And there's a whole group of
the other side
tags. Right. So we've done the distress paint, then we've done the stencil.
Spray, probably the Delusions was used on it, then the stencil, the glitter.
Right, and this is the design tool number 1 that was used on a second tag, or excuse me, on the card itself, and then this piece was cut out of the design tool, and the stamp in 2 pieces, a little feather with the glittery. Isn't that gorgeous?
Great,
just
little poly crystal up at the top.
Yeah.
And you do them side by side, do them as you're going along, try to create 2 things at once.
Now, something else you can do with the black embossing paste, just to give you a quick look. This is on the tag. We've covered it with the brown fireworks holographic and simply put a feather stencil and did the black embossing embossing paste, did not put any glitter, but because that holographic paper is such a wow, you get the shine behind it. This is some dazzles that have been added and just a bow at the top. So just wanted to show you a couple of options with this.
A simple way of making something look spectacular.
Yes, very easily. Okay, you ready for another step in our goal of doing mixed media scrapbooking? And here we have a whole new set. Now, in this one, let me find, what did I do? Okay.
We're starting with our Gypsy Jewels paper pack.
Right, and this is 2 of the papers, more in the green tones. This is what the package looks like. What I love about Gypsy Jewels is that it is non-themed. So you can do almost any theme of card scrapbook page with it. So we've got this. This is gorgeous. Gail, you did this, didn't you?
Yes, I did.
And the template that you used is this one, right?
This is the template, the small vine template.
Now, when you're looking at this and you're thinking in terms of it with embossing paste, the embossing paste is going to be on all of the open areas. So you're going to get a more solid look, which is what has happened on this page.
And I made sure that I didn't go all the way to the edge of the stencil so that you could see just a free form look.
Now, the embellishments that you used, cutting die, we used the 4 lacy rectangle. We, meaning you. And
we also have these mini chipboard words.
Right, again from Maya Road. And this time, the thing that you added to this is encrusted jewels, and this is the silver set. So,
also paper twine.
Oh, right,
and the distress paints were, on this one, were bundled sage and picket fence. That's how we start out. And then we're adding the white embossing paste. And
I thought it was silver.
Well, I used white and silver.
You did? Well, tricky woman you. Okay, so what are you going to show us?
That layered look. Well, I'm going to show you the technique that I did behind. So
you want the craft sheet?
Yeah, that's a good idea.
Because I think you've used yours.
So we're going to start with behind. I have this striped Gypsy Jewels paper.
You want to bring it in?
I'm going to bring it in.
Okay.
And what I did with it is that I started with the paints.
Well, first of all, you placed it with the lighter color at the top, going to the darker.
Right.
Okay.
Then I took my bundled sage distress paint, shook it up, and I started just on the corners and the edges. There's no reason to get in the center because it's going to be covered up.
Yeah, you used a separate paper for the center of it. So you're just doing some, some adjusting.
I'm just lightening it up a little. The whole look is sort of a muted, moving together with the colors, just combining subtler tones.
It's kind of that ombre with all the mixed media you're doing.
So I'm not going to do a whole lot, but I did do it on the corners, and I did it on the edges. And
now, did you go over that with the broken china?
Not with the broken china.
Okay.
Actually, I didn't go over it at all. I left it bundled sage, and I used the picket fence on the center area.
Okay.
So I kept them separate.
Okay.
So after that was on there, dries just a little bit. Then I get out my stencil. And I'm only going to do it down on the bottom corner, so we're just going to do it once here so you can see. I sort of set this one right on the corner. I've got out my white embossing paste. Got that. And my squeegee, which is a little bit black on there, so I made a little bit of the black off of there from the Halloween one. And get out just, it's kind of hard to get in there now. All right.
Here, I've got
I think maybe I've got enough. Put the cap on.
So paint. Now we're doing the embossing paste.
Now I'm doing the embossing paste.
Just keeping our recipe intact.
And I'm going to stop in a certain area. I only need to get down here in the corner, so I'm going to start down here.
So you're just doing this bottom corner.
Yeah, I'm not taping it down. I'm just holding it in place. It works just fine. Yeah. Just want to get along the bottom.
Now this one's going to take a bit more paste because of so much in the open areas.
So much open area, right.
Yeah.
So I'll just move up a little bit. Really that's, I want to get that corner.
Right. And you can see, I mean, it's obvious where it's going.
Where it's going.
This embossing paste is really light. Okay, let me scoot this over. Okay, now lift.
There we go.
Ta-da.
All right.
Pretty, pretty. Now, because you let it be, it wasn't solid, we have this kind of sheerness to it, which I think is really lovely.
This is where I'm doing something different. Okay. From the Encrusted Jewels kit, I've got the aged silver embossing powder. Okay. I'm going to put that right on top of that wet paste.
And that's more granular.
It is very granular. There's a powder mixed in with the grains.
Okay.
This is going to have to be heat set.
You're going to tap it off?
Okay.
You can get your heat gun.
Got my heat gun. And here we go.
Get this away so it doesn't blow.
Mostly stay on there. Yeah, it's going to stay on there. So it's going to curl your page a little bit. So usually it comes back a little bit, but it's going to bubble up the embossing paste as well.
Okay. Oh,
but
good.
it's also going to there. You can look at that. This is such a neat effect. You've got to, here, I'm going to try to do it this way so you can see what it does. It melts it heats the embossing powder so that it melts. There we go. There, see that? It bubbles up the paste at the same time, so it's drying the paste, melting the embossing powder, and it just comes up with this gorgeous metallic look.
Now, if you hadn't shown me that, I would be afraid to do it.
Really?
Well, I just wouldn't know what the heat would do with the embossing paste.
Okay. No, you can dry embossing paste with this, and actually, if you get really close and heat it up, it gets all bubbly, and that's also a really neat effect.
That is beautiful.
Yeah.
That is amazing.
That's with quite a bit of embossing powder. You can also use a lighter touch, and so that you can see some of the white through it.
Oh, how
but that's just
pretty.
Yeah. So that is what's going on the paper, on your page, underneath that top layer.
Okay.
When you get to the next layer, which I'm not going to...
that's what you've done down here.
Right.
And up there. Oh, it just seems such a shame to cover it up.
Well, you just want a little bit peeking out. So that's the look that you're getting there. It's really nice on the lighter too, where you can really see those areas peeking
And
through.
I see what you mean. This is more solid, and this is a little more, you can see areas,
right.
You know, kind of between the
it's your choice,
ranges.
and it's going to be different every time.
Yeah.
So that was the first part of the recipe.
Okay.
The next part in this case was to take another piece of paper, prepare it with paint, and then put
Same thing on two corners,
Right.
which is what you did before. Okay.
And then make some areas, put the stencil on, and use the silver embossing paste in a couple of free-form areas here and here. Now, and just let that dry as it is.
Okay, so this silver is going to dry, this highly reflective as it is.
Right.
You didn't do anything.
I didn't do anything
You are not
different
withholding any secrets from us.
I didn't even use the heat gun. I just let it dry just as is.
Wow.
Another thing that I did on here is I actually inked the stamp with distress paint here, and here.
Oh, and the stamp that you used is the swirl stamp, right?
Stamps, yeah.
So that's got...
I did a combination. So you can see here that I set two swirls together right next to each other, and then I took the distress paint. In this case, I used picket fence and bundled sage, and I just inked them up just like this. Went all over.
Stamped? Now
Inked them up and stamped.
You're not going to get like an impression you would get with an ink pad.
No.
You're going to get a little distressed, I guess.
A little distressed, a little bit
Hence
hazy.
the name.
And I took a little of the white actually and went around some of the edges that just anything to do something a little bit different, to add a little something.
Do you want to stamp that on your black cardstock right there?
Oh,
on the back
I
side
can do
of
that.
It? Okay.
One of those so that you can
just
see
to
it.
see it.
Oh, and then move over.
Yeah. So that's, okay, you get kind of the sketchy look.
Right.
That's nice, kind of
That's
a
almost
chalkboard look, isn't it?
Hey, okay, we'll do that later.
Now, you're embellishing. Okay, so I see the always is the chipboard word.
Right.
And that was done with?
With Versamark, which
Okay.
I'm going to need.
Well, let's just talk about it.
Okay.
So
I Versamarked it, and then I applied from the Encrusted Jewels kit the silver tinsel embossing powder.
Okay, so that's
just went over it, shook it
so
off.
shiny.
Right.
Okay, now this is exquisite.
That is a die cut from one of our lacy rectangle cutting dies. This is what this is. I just put it on cardstock, and I can show you how I do that.
Yes, let's do that.
Okay.
What do you need?
I need Versamark.
Okay.
I think you
Yes,
have.
I do have it.
This is a bit of a mess, but I'll just use this part of it here. And so I'm going to start with the
Now, you did first cut it out of black, huh?
I first cut it out of black.
Wow.
You might not recognize that right away. Took the Versamark and just went all over it.
Okay. And if we had more than 2 craft sheets, you would have one that you don't have to fold.
We actually do have 2 craft sheets. The other one has glitter all over it. Yeah, right. And then I just covered this thing with the aged silver embossing powder.
And again, this is out of the Encrusted Jewels
out of
silver
the silver,
set.
right, the silver set. Yeah, I love Encrusted Jewels. All the different colors are so much fun to play with.
I do too, and I think they are underutilized. So,
okay. So at this point, before I do anything else, I'm going to go ahead and heat emboss that. Probably should put a piece of cardstock under that, so that, because I'm going to need that again in a second. There, that's great. And I'll probably
Let me get a white.
The nice thing is you have to kind of hold onto this. There we go.
Whoops.
You have to kind of hold onto this with something so that it doesn't blow away. And I'm sure the pencils. I'll try a pencil and see what happens.
Yeah, I think that's maybe even into the corner of it.
And you know, if I get close, it's just going to heat up real quick. And you see all that?
Wow. I would never have expected that to work. Well, again, I don't think I would have even thought of it.
Oops.
Because it's such a fine detail. Now, you can do like...
I'm going to do one more thing.
Oh, okay. You want to do something more?
One more thing.
Okay.
I've got glass glitter. Silver glass glitter, which also comes in the kit.
So you need the Versamark again.
And I want to put a little...
Because the glitter isn't an embossing powder, so you need something to hold it on.
Right.
So that's why you're doing the Versamark again.
Versamark in 2 opposite corners.
Okay.
Add a little bit of the glass glitter.
Again, it's more granular, isn't it?
Oh, this is chunky.
Yeah.
This is really chunky stuff, and it's hard. Yeah. And this does not heat emboss on its own. You have to put it on something that will stick to. So I have to put it on the embossing powder, which I know it will stick to. And then I'm going to try to heat it. Try not to blow it all the way and heat it from underneath.
Okay.
Start down at this bottom corner. So I've got the heat gun underneath, so I'm just basically reheating the embossing powder.
Now, because this is chunky and you wanted to say, boy, does that look great, you're heating it from the bottom.
Right. So that it would stick a little bit. Then just to extra make sure, so you can sort of see it there. You can sort of see it changing. It moves a little bit. It's definitely embedded in. I'm not going to do both corners, but that's how that effect was done.
Wow. Now that is a hugely detailed cutting die, and yet all of those encrusted jewels are working beautifully.
Right.
Okay.
It does something special.
Wow. We covered every square inch of this table. Now, so what you've done also quite artistically is to position that at an angle on top of your photograph. You've done some journaling over here, charming, beguiling Laura, and added the paper ribbon that you also tapped with the distress paint.
With the bundled sage, I put that on. I unfurled the paper twine to get that effect.
That is drop dead gorgeous. And our card follows the exact same steps with the same papers. And as you can see, so there's our paper. It's got the distress paint.
The stencil with the embossing paste, then the embossing powder.
Right.
And then the die cut and an extra word.
How beautiful is this? What an amazing wedding card, graduation, so many things. Wow. Okay, we have a couple more because, we just want to give you lots of options. In case scrapbooking, card making, you want to do something else. This is a little book that's from our friends at Faber-Castell, and it has the pages that are chipboard, but they're white. And there are several, I think there's 6 or 8 that are included in the kit. And what we've done is followed the same recipe. So in this case, with the distress paints, they went all over, and again, let them mix this time.
Right. Then a couple of stamp sets were used to emboss in white the arrows here around and that center sentiment, which is from the new Simply Susan?
Right.
This is Simply Susan stamp set.
And we've got our spackle, our embossing paste with our template, and this is a swirl one.
Template. So all of this is the white embossing paste used with a template just placed off the edge there.
Right. And those are the swirl chipboard, which is right here.
Mini swirl chipboards.
And those were done the same way as you just did. You can either tap them with the paste and do the glitter, or you can
use a glue pad.
Right.
Or, and then just put glitter on top of them. That's great.
That is.
And I love the little purple jewel dazzles. Here's something that I hadn't thought of. Look, she went off the edge and cut the edge of the jewel dazzle on it. It's a great look.
And I love those colors just dabbed next to each other and a little bit touching.
It looks like almost all of the colors were used in this.
It does, doesn't it?
At least 3 or 4 colors to create this beautiful mottled background.
And on the inside, we did the same thing with the purple feather, again, doing that glitter on it and onto the tag.
And onto the tag with all of this distress paints mixed on. That's a glossy tag, so it gets kind of a different effect with the paint.
And this is, again, that stencil. Now, one final thing, just in case scrapbook pages, cards, mini albums is not your forte, look what has been done. Gail took this chipboard album and
a really fun chipboard
transformed it into this work of art. Okay.
So this starts with the white truffle paper pack.
Wait a second, I have it.
Ta-da! Okay, there it is. So you can get the lace, you can get the flourishes.
That's what I just wanted to point out. When she showed this to me, I thought, well, what stamp is that lace? Well, it's the lace on the paper.
Right.
So as you know, this has got several lace on it, so that's going to work well.
So on that front page, we start by piecing the papers here and then just tearing strips on strips on strips.
Well,
and
of course.
Laying them across to get this lacy effect on the skirt.
Now, you used the swirl chipboard pieces, and it looks like you distress painted those also.
I used antique linen, and the other one was, the broken china.
Okay,
Those are the two that I used. And for this one, I actually I used a sponge and sort of sponge painted them on. You can use it right off the top, but to me, it was a little bit too dark.
Okay.
So I put some on a sponge and then sort of dabbed it around.
I love these layers of paper just torn. It just looks like the lace and for her dress.
And on top of that, after I painted it, I just laid that stencil there, that template right on top of it, and used the gold embossing paste.
So we have white, black, silver, and now gold.
Right.
Now this is a shiny gold, but you said when you first put it on, it wasn't that shiny?
Right. Like I can show you right here how that works.
Do you have a stencil?
I was just going to put it right on there.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't have the stencil, but let's see. So I've got some of the gold embossing paste and this black cardstock here. And I'm just going to take a little bit out there.
Squeegee on a little bit.
And squeeze it on. So when you put it on, it looks like peanut butter.
It does, doesn't it?
It's the color of peanut butter.
Okay.
Oops.
But Gail,
afterwards, after it dries on its own without being heat embossed, that's how it looks.
And this is how it looks on your dress. Wow. So that gives another opportunity.
It's the same thing with the silver. When it starts out, it's kind of a muted like that. You don't see much sparkle to it, but after it dries, it's got that shine.
That's nice. So our dress is finished with, so we've got the paper, we've done the painting. We've done our stencil with the embossing paste. That's our recipe.
And I have to point out, that stencil, if you turn it, you get the biggest part of that circular stencil and you set it up around the neckline.
We both thought this was brilliant.
Up around the neckline, I just made the little...
It just works perfectly.
Like a necklace.
Yay! And you can see the buttons. This is from the gold set of buttons, so that's going to go a long way.
Right.
Now, the stamping, this is from the Serendipity flowers, and I can see that you've got here and here and the
and
Be
this
Happy.
This was done with the distress paints. I put them right onto the stamp.
Just like you showed us.
Right.
Okay.
Down at the bottom, I actually embossed it in gold. You can also use the metallic stays on.
Okay.
And then there's those mini swirls,
Right.
which I painted with the distress paints.
Right.
And then I actually dabbed a little bit of the embossing paste on the edges of
on the
swirl,
tips.
on the tips of the swirls, so you can see they shine a little bit.
And just because you did this page, I just want to show it. So again, you've got your chipboard, you've got the stamping,
Right.
you've done the painting.
The painting, I stamped and stays on gold back behind. And I actually, if you can see this real close right here, you can actually go over the edges with the paint, with the distress paints of the photo.
Oh, okay.
Just kind of a little bit of an antiquing look.
Okay, a little bit of the very
And
pretty.
each page on this album sticks out a little bit from the next one. So there's gold stays on one.
Okay.
There's some more paper done, a little more painting.
And that one.
Right.
There is another album that we didn't use. There's actually a t-shirt one as well as the shirt. And then there's also this mixing gears, which would be very fun to play with.
Oh, yeah.
So,
That'd be great fun.
Okay, folks, this is the beginning of our mixed media scrapbooking, but just want you to know, not only scrapbooking, card making, and you have the perfect recipe to make this happen.
So get cooking.